I'm Herman from Platinum Racing Products, and I'm going to show you through our groundbreaking RB26 build, the first of its kind. It's our first aftermarket cast block and head. We've chosen some really cool partners to work with, like Italian Rods and Pistons, for some really upmarket gold and platinum version type rods and pistons. It's still an 86.5 mil bore. We've gone for our standard integrated main cap brace, completely finished and machined by us with this block. I've got a special guest here to help me put this thing together.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mickey from Throttle, and I just happened to be in Sydney, Australia today while Herman was coincidentally going to be putting this together, so I figured I'd stop by and
give me a hand,
as he's like to say.
Yeah.
So this is exciting because this is a block that may actually end up in our R34 project car that's going to be going to SEMA this year. So it makes sense for me to be here and watch you build it and help you out. Where do we start?
We call them Welsh plugs. You call them freeze plugs.
We call them freeze plugs, and man, those things have bailed us out before when we had water in one of our race engines and took it up into the mountains, and those freeze plugs popped out. We had to rebuild the engine, but luckily we didn't crack the block. So
well, we went with a screw-in version, -8, -10, -12 type AN fittings. So if you do want to plug something into the block for any reason, well, it's just a standard fitting, which made sense.
Simple. You can even drill a hole out of the center and tap it if you want, huh?
Whatever you want.
Oh, let's get cracking. Welsh plugs are in, and the purple anodize looks amazing against this black engine block. Now what's next?
We're ready to build it. We've got to throw a crank in it, some bearings, front oil pump delete, and throw the brace on. But what I wanted to mention is we've already spent a lot of time measuring this up. It's been clearanced, ring gaps, thrusts are sorted. This isn't a video about how to set up or build the RB when it comes to clearances. This is slapping it together because it's the fun part.
So basically showing you guys the assembly of this brand new block. And man, I can't wait. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right, well that was fun. We got our oil gallery plug in, got our crank in, we got our oil squirters in, block off plate is on, brace is on, she's torqued down, and I think the last thing to do now down here is put the pistons in, and we got those ready on the
Slugs are ready to go.
Let's slap the slugs
The slugs are hungry.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
The Italian rods and pistons are assembled. Believe it or not, in 25 years of working in the automotive industry, I've never done that. So it's cool to learn from you, my good friend, and you showed me a few tips that I probably would have, well, it would have taken me some time to figure out. So
you can cheat. You can cheat with ring spreaders and tooling and other tools that help you get the circlips in, but just using your hands, it'll serve you well because your tools are attached for the rest of your life. And you didn't break a ring.
If you can do it with your bare hands, you can do it with the tools, probably. So.
But not breaking a ring is a really good start.
Oh, I'm 3 for 3 so far, so that's good. Well, there ain't nothing to it but to get these things in the engine. So let's start popping them in.
Let's go.
pretty special that this was my first engine, which is now your
first engine, yeah.
Out of the foundry. So very exciting for me, and that's all the time I have for this project today. Unfortunately, I'm honored. My 001 engine is your 001 engine, and that makes me happy. So hopefully I'm reunited with this engine someday. I get to see it running something. That would be really cool. It's going to look wicked with all the purple bits on it. So looking forward to seeing it all buttoned up, brother.
It's happening. Thank you, man. All right, so we're back now with the head. We finally got it all machined and fitted up. All the cam tunnels are done. We fitted our buckets, all our valve trains all in. Thanks to Kelford with your support there. We are ready to put this bad boy together to a point where we can put it on the block that we just finished putting together. So step one, getting this head together. We aren't ready to put the cams down yet. We do that on the engine so we don't open any valves and damage them. We're just gonna put all the Welsh plugs in, rear head drain, and check all the plugging and everything else before we get it ready to sit it on the bottom end. So I'll get into it now. Okay, so now that all the bungs are in, we're going to install our PRP head drain. Now this is crucial on any RB, but especially on this cylinder head because we have two major oil galleries that go just underneath the bucket well area all the way to the back. They're quite sizable and they end up right in that area there. So although we feel it will drain through our bigger drain backs into the block, if you're not running a PRP block, it's even more essential to run this. So we're going to put it on anyway, and then we've got some options with water circulation for turbo cooling or header tank or different oil drain options depending on which way you want to swing it. Make sure you don't over tighten these. You just want to bind up the O-ring and not squish the guts out of it. The head is assembled. This is our first PRP R0 head ready to bolt onto the engine. We've got our bungs in, cams are ready to settle, all the valve trains in, we've CC'd our chambers, we've done absolutely everything. We're ready to put this bad boy on the engine. Just a quick note before we go and put this cylinder head on. We've had a little innovation with the oil gallery squirter into the block. Now this is a Brad Sheriff idea and we took it on thinking this is actually a great way to fix the RB oil gallery restrictor issue because there's always crap that sits under it. You can never clean it out because you've got to remove them and that's a pain in the ass. So we thought it's an M6 hole or a 6mm hole. We might as well make it an M7 by 1 thread, which happens to be the same thread as the cam gear bolt into the camshaft. So you've always got one sticking around in a toolbox somewhere. So with those installed, let's go throw the head on. Now that we've got our head on, it's time to put some head studs in. I've got some RP625 standard RB26 head studs here, although in this particular scenario we could go all the way to the mains. We wanted to test a standard and worst case scenario, so we're going to go with a standard M12, the standard length, and we're going to pull it a little bit more than a standard setup, which we don't recommend anyone go over 105, 110 max. We're going to pull this to about 125 Newton meters and see how we go. ARP grease, you've got to use it. It works really well, it gives you a consistent torque spec, but it's really messy stuff. I hate getting it on my hands, so I usually wear gloves for this part. Now, one thing I will say about ARP grease is you don't need heaps of it and you don't want it going through your bearings. So what I usually do, I've got this little technique which I want to show you here. You might have seen me doing it on the bottom end. I like to put a big dob here on my hand. You roll your threads into it and that's it. That's all you want. You don't really worry about the bottom end as much as the top end. A nice film across the stud. You don't want it on the shank. You don't want it anywhere else. That's all you need. Don't go bananas with the stuff. It ends up everywhere. right, so now all our studs are in, we've got our washers in. I don't put any lube on the washers. The lube goes on the bottom of the nut only because you want that to spin on the washer. You don't want the washer to spin against the cast cylinder head. Now, I like to check that I can get my tools in beforehand. Now these cams are raised and usually you can get to an RB26, but this one I've just noticed one of them, I can't quite get to it on the front. So I'm gonna quickly pop this cam out so I can go and put the nuts on, tension the head. Then it can just go back in. As you can see, sometimes it's easier to get to the studs with the cam out. They do have a relief in them, but every now and then you've just got to pull a cam and get the job done. With all the nuts on, it's now time to torque it down. Start from the middle and wind in a circle out. 3 stages, I'm gonna go 50, 60, gonna bump it up to about 80, 90, and then bring in the rest home and double check it. One thing I like to do as well, if you don't feel that you're gonna get the click or you're marginally close to it pulling to tension, stop and have another bite so you can get it in motion, because you'll end up with a false reading. You just get the hang of it after a while. Okay, with everything torqued up, we're ready to install cams. Or the cam and button them all down, get them right. We choose Kelford cams. Kelford cams go in all of our head packages. They are a really good cam. They support us well. This is not a huge cam. 182S's, not a huge cam for an RB. We have another engine that we are back-to-backing with this engine. We wanted to choose the same cam. This cylinder head is a standard R0 unported. We wanted to compare it with a very well-ported 05U cylinder head, which was an engine that we are running not long before this one to get a really good back-to-back engine dyno result. Okay, now all of this is torqued down. We're good to go with some cam gears and the cam gear backing plate, start setting up our cams. What I will say, I like to leave all of the weight off that front cap at all times because there's no lobes either side of it. All it does is hold and support the cam and that cam seal. We put the cam seal in, bring the cap in over it after all the rest of the cams are settled, and then I torque it all at the same time to make sure we've reached tension and we're all good to go. One other thing I'll mention while I'm playing with our cam caps, you'll notice a very spotty purple cam cap. This is not a billet cam cap. It's a very special cast type material, but I'm not even going to get into how it was forged or made. It holds oil in it. Now, people that make aftermarket cam caps have trouble getting the oil in the porosity to hang in there because there isn't any billet, not very porous, right? So we found a particular composition which holds oil in the pores of the material as well as the cast head itself, which makes lubricating the journals essential, which stops us giving us trouble down the track. I want to explain what I'm doing here, because the guys that know are going to say, Herman has got 2 tensioners on there, why is he doing that? We've raised the deck 2 millimeters. We needed to introduce a second tensioner on the right hand side, which is usually just an idler. And now that we've dialed in our cams and dialed in top dead center, we want to bring the tension on equally. The left hand side you tension down always, the opposite side we're going to tension up. It just gives us a little bit more adjustability because we ran out of belt length with our unusual setup. Now that we've finished the top end, we're happy with our cam location, cam covers and all that could go on, but we figure let's get the sump on now. We're going to go ahead and put on one of our Dyno sumps. This thing's been used for a while. We pull it off and on engines. We've made up a little bracket to support that pan rail because we're not going to be running the diff. We have evolved these pans quite a lot, but these all work well. They're a forever item, but we've given them a O-ring seal now. Either way, you don't need a whole heap of silicone or sealant. A thin coat is all that's needed. We're finished. This is it. We've just finished off our PRP R0/R1 bottom end block. Now let me explain what we've done with it. It is a 2.8. We decided to wind the wick up a little bit. We've just had an RB26 on the engine dyno as a back-to-back, was really efficient engine with our PRP 05U port work. Now this is a standard R0 street OEM type cylinder head, which means no porting at all. It is off the shelf as far as PRP's 4 heads are concerned. It's number 1 with 1mm oversized valves. They go a lot bigger in the R1 stuff, but we're not talking about the R1. We just want to test the R0 OEM or street type version of cylinder head, and we couple it along with our R0 rated block, but it's got an integrated main cap brace. Other than some Italian rods and pistons, we're working with a 2mm higher deck, experimenting with some longer con rods. We have gone down a complete rabbit hole of con rod ratios and 90mm bore stuff. That's not this engine. This is a proof of concept, testing the cast head and the block together because we just happen to have them both ready at the same time. We want to blow some air through this thing. So we have played around with some Garretts and Precisions on the engine dyno before, but we really wanted to send this thing. 8685 is what we've chosen on an Artec Big Daddy manifold and an Artec rear housing, which is all bolt-on. It's a 115 rear, so we should be able to stay under or around under the 1:1 ratio on exhaust back pressure. We've got sensors absolutely everywhere on this thing. We're going to start getting this bad boy onto our engine dyno rig right here, right now, and we're going to start it, hopefully start it up shortly and get some oil pressure and heat into it, and to get it ready for the dyno in a couple of days' time. So let's grab the rig and lower it on. As you can see, we've got it on our engine dyno rig. Now what this helps us do is get it all running, get oil pressure, get fuel pressure, run it basically until it's all bled up, coolant's bled up, make sure we've got no leaks, everything's proofed, and then we'll go and plug it into the engine dynamometer and it should be ready to basically start running in. And then once we've run it in for, an hour or two, we'll dump the oil, put the Newlon synthetic oil in and give it hell. So we're about to see what this thing's gonna make. We need to get some numbers on the board. We need to do some hardcore testing. It all happens now. So we're ready to go. We're all very excited. Want to plug it in and get it running. But for now, let's see if we can turn it over and get it to start. We're at the engine dyno now. We're going to give it a light run in, drop the oil out of it, and then start giving it some pulls as soon as we're confident. But oil pressure and fuel pressure, all that sort of stuff we're going to be monitoring. We've got sensors everywhere, EGTs. So it's just a close monitoring of anything abnormal while we stuff a tune into it and then just see how it responds. We've done it. We've had an amazing day running this on the dyno. 5 hours of consistent tuning up to around 1100 odd horsepower, which is exactly what we wanted to do today. The aim was to run this engine in and heat cycle it a bunch of times to be able to have a look through it and see how it's all bedding in. We managed to get 10,500 RPM out of it. It sounds amazing. We've got no metal coming off any of the bearings. The internals and filters look absolutely great, but we really need to now pull it down, have a good look, see if the deck shifted, see if any of the clearances have moved whatsoever, so that we can then, if it needs it, freshen it up. If we need to make changes, we might make a couple, but I think we're going to be just screwing it back together, coming back, and then we'll send it for some power. But today was about endurance testing, doing some hours and logging, some high sort of horsepower, high RPM sort of tuning runs. And look, we're really stoked. Engine sounds amazing. So where to from here? I've got a plane to catch in a couple of days. Really keen to get over to SEMA. We're going to see all of our buddies over there, throttled. We've got a special display happening over there, PRP and Motive, obviously promoting GTR Festival, and hopefully we'll see you all at GTR Festival. I'm happy to tell you all about this. We're really excited about it all. RB Development has made a great stride today, and we're really happy, really proud. It's a life's work coming into fruition now to have our first engine hang in there for 11,000 almost RPM. Man, we are really stoked. So I'm gonna see you at GTR Festival. I'll have a big smile on my face. Come and say good day. See you there.
The Platinum Racing Products GTR Festival, presented by Pennzoil, HKS USA, Cars from Japan and Motive Video, is heading to the USA on November 15th through 17th at Texas Motorplex. Full info, entries and tickets available at gtrfestival.com.